Hello ladies and gentlemen, I'm Jared and welcome to Gamerslice. I'm back here with another first impressions video, which I haven't done one of for quite some time now. In fact, I haven't done any sort of video for quite some time other than Free-to-Play Fridays. But this time I'm talking about Deus Ex Mankind Divided. I got it on the PC and I've actually been enjoying it quite a bit. So a lot of these comparisons I'm going to make to Human Revolution, but some of them are standalone as well. One of the things that I noticed most after playing Mankind Divided a bit was that it's better than Human Revolution in pretty much every aspect of the game. The graphics, for one, are looking really good. On the consoles, I've heard they might look a bit behind, maybe a bit dated, or just kind of average. But on the PC, they look really good. However, the performance on PC at first was not quite optimized. It's more optimized now, but you do have to tone the graphics down maybe a bit. Like with the 970, I was only able to run the game at at the high settings, and even then there was quite frequent frame rate drops. As far as the animations go, most of the animations are fine. Some of them are kind of a bit under par, but the biggest problem is that the lip sync in this game is terrible. Like, I'm telling you, this lip sync is the worst you've probably ever seen in a AAA game. I don't understand. Like, they got pretty much everything else right, but the lip sync just does not look good. Now, I feel it's gotten better after I played more, but I think I'm just getting used to it because it's really not good. They pretty much are just flapping their lips, and it looks terrible. Other than that, the cover system is much smoother than before. You also have multiple ammo types for your weapons. There's like EMP ammo, which you can now use to like shoot security cameras or turrets or whatever, and disable them, which I really like. It comes in handy for stealth playthroughs, and as well as armor-piercing ammo. They also have a crafting system this time around, which sometimes when there's a game that doesn't necessarily seem like it needs a crafting system, like I'm kind of hesitant if they put something like that in. Deus Ex, I don't think necessarily need a crafting system, but I think it works well this way. It doesn't use, like, it's not like something like Fallout or whatever, where you use a bunch of different components, or even something like Dead Island, or, you don't need specific components, but there's just crafting parts. You just get parts by picking them up. It's like a currency, in other words. So, and then certain items require a certain amount of crafting parts to craft. So you can craft different tools, such as the multi-tool, which allows you to basically freely hack something without going through the hacking minigame. And you can craft ammo for some of the new augmentations, such as the nano blade and like the Tesla arc thing, whatever, the stun thing. It's basically a non-lethal form of that. It allows you to target multiple enemies at once. And also specific customization options for weapons other than the attachments, but some of them you can like increase the damage and rate of fire on the weapon with these crafting parts as well, directly from the inventory at any time, as long as you have the requirements. Of course, the hacking system is also back in this game. Now, the core concept of it is pretty much the same, the core layout, same thing, but it's a little bit fancier and more complex this time around. When you're going between some of the nodes, sometimes the paths will cross over each other, so you may have to take different paths to actually get to different locations. So there's like multiple levels, and also there's more types of software. There's the reveal software, because sometimes the area will be clouded and you can't see everything. You might need the data scan software, which will tell you what is in certain nodes, like some of the bonuses. And it will also detect firewalls, which is a new countermeasure this time around, and they're just hidden unless you use that, and it'll basically stop your hack once you cross it. And if you cross it before you're detected, it will automatically alert everything. And of course, stealth software kind of replaces the nuke software, but it's a little different. There's nuke software, stopworm. So they added, I think, about 4 or 5 new types of software. Personally, myself, I was fine with the hacking game. I know some people didn't like it, but even with these things being added, if you didn't like it before, you probably still won't like it now. In fact, you might even like it less. But as somebody who is okay with it, I think it's actually improved by becoming more complex. Now, one of the main pillars of the Deus Ex franchise is the augmentations. Now, the augments that are available to you this time around, a lot of them are pretty much the exact same as in Human Revolution, but they did add, a fair amount. You can count them, probably like 7 or 8 of them this time around. You get access to these pretty early on in the game. Some of them, for instance, are like a remote hack ability, which does not work to hack everything, but there's certain specific things that are exclusive to remote hacking. There's the Icarus Dash, which is just similar to your Blink and Dishonored, which reminds me this game does share a lot more DNA with something like Dishonored now. I think that game's kind of shaped the landscape, and the two of the games and the development teams behind them do have kind of a history together. If you go back, Harvey Smith actually worked on the original Deus Ex game, which is interesting. But there's also a focus augmentation. You can use the nano blade augmentation, and then that Tesla stun thing that I mentioned, and there's a couple others. But those are just some of the new ones. The thing is, there is this feature or this limitation that you have with it. You can to activate him, you have to overclock yourself. But if you overclock it too much, your systems will become unstable, and there'll be more glitches. Sometimes it can be as severe as, like, if a glitch happens, you won't be able to use any of your augmentations for a brief period of time. Sometimes maybe up to like 30 seconds, though. So it can be, if you're in a sticky situation, it can hurt you quite a bit. So you really don't want that to happen to you. But eventually you can go through a couple missions, or you go through a mission, and then later on in the game you can use what you get there, which is actually in the mission I'm showing. You can get this calibrator, and then later on in the game you can get the guy to install it for you, and then overclocking no longer matters, and you can unlock them without worrying about overclocking yourself. As far as augmentations go, though, I am playing on the PC, as I mentioned before, and on the keyboard the controls are a little bit of a downside to me, because you have to use there's like an augmentation wheel this time around, and you can map it augmentations. You can map up to 5 augmentations at once, either with the F1 through F4 keys, and you can also have another one for like the quick use equipped to the middle mouse button. So but for me to use the F1 to F4 keys just without looking, sometimes it's annoying. I know people that are more experienced with PC and have been playing for years, that might not be a problem for them, but most of the time I just like mapping to the middle mouse button, because otherwise I sometimes have to look. Now, Deus Ex is an open world or semi-open world game, with hub areas and whatnot, and it's an RPG, of course, driven by heavy choices, which is a huge pillar of the franchise, and interesting and often complex story. So, how does it do in these departments? Well, the world design is very well crafted, in my opinion. It is, it's crazy because there's only one loading screen in the entire hub area, and that's because there's 2 hub areas. The southern section is a bit smaller, and you basically have to transition between the two on the subway. And you go through that subway, and that's kind of that's really the only loading screen, other than maybe when you're going to different locations for a couple main set piece missions in the main story. But other than that, just one loading screen, which is kind of on the long side. But I was quite impressed with this. And it's an interesting trade-off from the previous game where you had to like load into every single building. But this time the buildings you can just like open a door and walk right through them. So that's pretty cool. The open world is very well crafted, in my opinion. There's a lot of cool places that you can just exploring. Some of them you need certain augmentations to get to, of course, like the high jump ability comes in handy. Otherwise you might have to stack boxes. So there's lots of different ways to tackle these. But some of them, like even to get to easier, some of them to get to at all, you're going to need the remote hacking ability, which is one of the new ones. So you're going to have to make a lot of use of your augments in order to get to certain places. But it's very cleverly designed. Many locations you'll find ebooks and just interesting loot. Be able to hack, different computers and find out more about the story. So there's a lot of rewards in there. Plus there's like the triangle codes, which they added in this game, which paired, you scan them with the Deus Ex Universe app, and it unlocks behind-the-scenes content. But other than that, pretty clever, pretty good payout for finding most of these locations as well. And I think those hidden spots are actually done better than in Human Revolution. So that's a huge plus. And of course, this ties in with the side missions as well, which is where you're going to be exploring, alongside the side missions, you're going to be exploring that. So the side missions, I think, are done even better than the previous one. There's very few of them that actually don't stand out. Some of them are pretty interesting, they're pretty substantial. But I will say this time around, the game at this point does seem to be shorter than Human Revolution. So I think people are going to be playing the side quests more than they did in Human Revolution. One of the most important signatures of the Deus Ex franchise, and this is where Mankind Divided really excels, is that it provides multiple angles of approaching missions. And Human Revolution was pretty good at this, Mankind Divided takes us to a whole new level. Like, just in this mission alone, which is why I chose this specific footage, you can see I tackled this mission in two entirely different ways. They're totally different. And there are probably in this particular mission, I don't know, I'd guess there's probably about, you know, 3 or 4 different ways. Some of the side missions I've noticed probably have more like 5 or 6 different ways. So, no matter what your playstyle, you're always going to find an interesting way to tackle each mission. Now, with all this in mind, though, if you are like a stealth player or a ghost player, Mankind Divided hasn't changed the Deus Ex experience that much for you, other than a couple of augmentations, like maybe the Icarus Dash, and if you're, you know, okay with actually even stunning people or taking them, just taking them out non-lethally, then, for instance, the Tesla ability is a good addition. And Peps works a little bit differently too. But in that, you haven't changed much. But if you are some player that likes to do a mix of all kinds of stuff, lethal, non-lethal, or if you just want to go in guns blazing, then the experience from Human Revolution has changed entirely. But regardless of what your playstyle is, if this game intrigues you in the least bit and you like Cyberpunk, I would encourage picking this one up because, as I said, I think it's better than Human Revolution in most ways. And the story is quite enticing so far, although I don't know if it's quite got as many of the ups and downs as Human Revolution did. There's, like, I think, Phil, this time you're getting very few answers as you're going on, but more and more stuff is building up. But I'm hoping that that's going to lead to a huge build-up and a huge climax at the very end of the game. Now, that's it for the main story. However, in Mankind Divided, they have added a new mode. It's actually a multiplayer mode of sorts, where you compete against other players on a scoreboard, but it's not live. It's called Breach. Now, you can collect breach software within the main campaign, kind of similar to the triangle codes, and you can turn them into this one guy, and it unlocks something. It has something to do with breach mode. I haven't quite figured out what the correlation is, though, but I did decide I wanted to go and play through the breach mode just to share a couple thoughts on it so far. After I took the footage of here, I actually played a little bit longer than I wanted to before making this video. But I got to a point which turns out is not, actually I didn't think was too far into the game, but it's probably about a third of the way. And you kind of get into this virtual reality thing in the neural subnet system, part of the main mission you have to go into. This is basically what breach mode is, and it's kind of in just this virtual reality space, and you do time trials while going through certain areas, and you have this is kind of where like microtransactions come in. You have like packs, and then you can open it up, get new different weapons and stuff, and it uses a lot of the same mechanics from the main game, but it's kind of a novel way, I think a good idea to maybe extend the experience after you're done with the main campaign. But I'm not really quite sure at this point. I'll have to play further to see for sure, and you'll hear my final thoughts on it in the review. But for right now, I'm not quite sure it's going to do the job, and it may not be that great of an addition to the game. But we'll see. It's kind of intriguing right now, but it doesn't stand out too much. So that's my thoughts on the game. Give feedback. I'm also using a new mic. It's the same mic that John uses for his videos. But give me feedback on what this mic sounds like, and feedback on what you thought of the game if you've played it already. So thanks for watching, and until next time, we here on Gamer Slice hope to see you guys in the next video.